That's why I do all these live shows, so that I can see a crowd and go, see, people do listen. The numbers aren't pretend.
Dublin, Ireland, what is good?
It is so exciting to be here on the first show of Tour Up of all the places to start. I started here in Ireland. You get dibs over everyone forever. I am so excited to be here. I have been in Europe before, never been to Ireland before, so this has been a very fun time so far. I went on a walking tour today where I learned the history of all the bad things that the United Kingdom has done to you, and other places as well. I don't know why everyone's picking on you. Everyone here is very nice. So without further ado, we're gonna get into our first act where we will be discussing Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And of course, I never do this alone. I'm always joined by a very special guest, and this guest is very special. I'm a big fan of hers, and I know many of you are as well. Please make some noise for Kelly Beckman Schubert.
Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Good.
It's been a whole 30 seconds since I've last seen
I know,
you.
yes.
Now, you have been to Ireland multiple times.
Yes,
You have
this
much
is-
more of a connection than I do.
Yes, this is my fourth time here. I actually have no idea what my heritage is because my grandfather always used to say, if you're one drop Irish, you're all Irish. So I grew up thinking I was all Irish. My sister studied abroad here. I took many trips over here. I love Ireland. It's great.
Now, I do have more updated Irish roots stats for me because my parents recently did one of the, Ancestry.com things or whatever. My dad texted me a screenshot today saying, don't forget to let them know that you have Irish heritage. I don't know what my full percentage is, but my dad is apparently 29%. So by the one drop rule, everything I've ever done is now an Irish accomplishment. So you're welcome. Our tour guide today said that was a big thing, that like anyone with any sort of drop, you take credit for all of them. So if you want to brag about it, yeah. But no, seriously, my grandpa was so into our Irish roots. He used to make little buttons that said "Oh Schubert" on them for St. Patrick's Day parties. And he had this big white chin strap beard that he used to dip into food coloring. He would just take like water with food coloring and soak his beard in it. So he would have a green beard for St. Patrick's Day. He changed the toilet water in our toilet so that it would be green.
Oh my gosh.
For the parties as well. Super into it. So yeah, we're all one and the same. Now we're here to cover chapter 17 of book 4, and as much of 18 as we can get through of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which is an intense chapter.
Yes.
Johnny Frolickstein did call dibs on this one a very long time ago, and we were gonna try to record it before leaving for the tour, but he had to get married, so he was busy last week.
Super busy.
Nah, he is very sorry that he couldn't do it. Kelly was very excited that she got
I
it
was
instead. When I
excited,
was like,
yes.
hey, we're too busy with this, Johnny's too busy with the wedding. Like, we traveled early because I was in his groomsmen party and everything. Kelly was like, oh, it's coming to me. I get to do chapter 17.
I checked with him like 3 times because I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I have no time for recording this. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. All right. So here I am.
We were both a little busy, Kelly and I, moving and prepping for all of this, and Johnny
Yes.
getting married. Ugh, how selfish of him. So let's get into this chapter. Where we last left our heroes at the end of chapter 16, they had returned back into the Labyrinth after Kronos came back to life via Luke. Just a cool, fun vibe ending to the previous chapter. Everything's A-okay.
Yep.
Now, the chapter title for chapter 17 is called The Lost God Speaks. I always try to guess what happens in the chapter based on the title alone, and I just wrote in all caps, Pan, with 17 N's, and then in parentheses I wrote, does Pan count as a god? Pan's a god, right? Which I'm pretty sure, but at the same time, I was like very confident, and then the tiny little 1% of my brain was like, but what if it's someone else? Nah, felt pretty good about the guess though.
I think he's considered a minor god, but he is considered a god, yes.
But a good one, unlike Janus.
Yes,
That
sure.
guy sucked. I was not a fan, not a fan at all. So our team is back in the labyrinth. They are running. They run until they're tired and they don't have any sort of destination in mind. The plan is just to go as far away from Mount Othris as possible. Let's just get away from these folks. Seems like a good idea. Now, Rachel Elizabeth Dare steers them clear of any traps along the way, and eventually they arrive at a tunnel that has a bunch of white rocks around it, and it's a whole cave. Rachel Elizabeth Dare tries to catch her breath. Annabeth continues crying, and we learn that she was crying the entire time that they were running. Aww. Running and crying at the same time does not sound like a good combo. Aww. Especially when you're trying to run away from someone that's really scary and you're trying to catch your breath. You're crying on top of that? That does not sound like a good time.
That's, poor Annabeth.
I don't know that I thankfully have never had a situation where I've run and cried at the same time. It doesn't sound fun. It doesn't sound fun.
I think I've told this story before about how my cross-country coach in high school used to make me run the 800, which I hated. I liked longer distances, and the 800 meter is perfectly in between being a short distance and a long distance, and I hated it, and I think I did cry while running it. I hated it so much.
Congrats to your brother who just ran a marathon, though.
Oh, yes, my brother just completed a marathon. Congrats to him.
It's give it up for David. A feat I will never accomplish. I have no desire. Never I will run a marathon.
My siblings are making me look like a real slacker. My sister has run a couple of marathons. My brother now has run a marathon. They're both doctors. I'm just like, yeah, I'm here too.
But have either of them flown across the globe to another country and had a crowd of about 100 people give them double applause when they take the stage? I don't think so. So don't sell yourself short.
True, but I'm sure you'd have them on the show if they would come.
But they refuse to go on the show. I've asked your sister multiple times because she's read the Percy Jackson books, and she has decided that she does not want to appear on the podcast. But when I heard from someone at one point, they were like, oh, the human body isn't meant to run a marathon. It's way too far. I was like, cool, an excuse. Nice. I'm just being smart and healthy.
Yeah, when I hurt my knee, I was like, oh, that's why I don't run anymore. Yeah. That's the reason, not because I hate it.
Of course. No, you're just trying to keep yourself safe.
Exactly.
So Annabeth is crying continuously, as she has been. Percy tries to shake the memory of Luke's golden eyes as Kronos, and then he sits next to Nico, who says, that sucked. And narrator Percy says, which I thought summed up things pretty well, and couldn't agree more. Now, Percy thanks Nico for saving their lives. Nico says all credit is due to the girls because the only thing that Annabeth and Rachel Elizabeth Dare could agree on was that they needed to help Percy, otherwise he would mess things up. They can find common ground finally. Percy alerts Nico that he probably gave himself away to Kronos as being a son of Hades because he did the giant black stone wall defense mechanism. Nico frowns and says, big deal, but Percy thinks that this is him putting on an act just to hide his fear. Annabeth lifts her head and asks what the evil people did to Luke. And I wrote, you mean what Luke did to himself? Because he got himself into this mess. He made his bed and now he has to lay in it. This is his fault. I have no sympathy for him.
Yeah, I know.
Or at least I'm saying this right now. I'm sure I'll feel bad later on. But right now, I don't care. You did this. This is your fault. Percy relays the full coffin story with the hole in the heart thing to Annabeth. She just refuses to believe it, though. Percy says that he's sorry, but Luke has given himself over to Kronos and he's gone. And I wrote in my notes, he's not totally gone. Remember when Rachel Elizabeth Dare hit him with the hairbrush? And Annabeth, the next line says, no, you saw when Rachel hit him. Percy nods and then gives Rachel Elizabeth Dare props for hitting the Lord of Time in the head with a hairbrush. She says that's all I had. And Annabeth says that Luke came back to his senses, which feels like an oversell. I wouldn't say Luke saying ow is him coming to his senses. Percy thinks that it might mean Kronos isn't fully set into Luke's body, but it doesn't mean that Luke's in control, and that feels more accurate. Because it's not like he got hit with the hairbrush and then said, oh, this is a bad idea. What am I doing? I'm in over my head. No, all he said was, ow. Annabeth accuses Percy of wanting Luke to be evil, and I wrote, no, he just is. She says that Percy didn't know him before, and she did. And when she said that, I had to take a step back because I totally get it. I've seen people in my life change for the worse and then give them second, third, fourth, fifth chances. But you can only get disappointed so many times. And at some point you have to accept that the old them is gone and they are a different person now. I don't know if that's the case with Luke. just like Percy, me reading this, I didn't know how good he was before. So it's easy for me to just think, nah, screw him. I kind of see what she's getting at, but also I feel like Luke had a lot of opportunities to turn away from this evil situation.
I mean, I think also that, Percy did have a relationship with him for a year. And so it was kind of hard for him to get over that. But on the other hand, Percy's the one in direct danger right now by Luke/Kronos. So it's kind of like apples and oranges. And also Luke actively tried to kill Percy.
Yes.
So, I would hold a little bit of a grudge too, I think.
That's what I was going to say, is that what really set me off and has sort of pushed me over the edge here is that what happened most recently in the arena, where Luke really wanted Percy to die for only selfish reasons. Like, the best way you can credit Luke for that is, oh, well, he needed the big Titan dude whose name I've forgotten, Wave Teeth Boy. He needed him to get killed so he knew Percy could defeat him, / he needed that guy to be entertained so he was going to have Percy fight. When that's the best defense, it's not a good situation.
I was actually thinking even farther back where he tried to kill him with the spider in book 1.
Oh, you're right.
Immediately tried to kill him. And the scorpion in book 1 immediately tried to kill him. I think he's tried to kill him multiple times, I guess. I forgot about the most recent one. Yeah. So, it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Percy has had enough of Annabeth's defending of Luke, and he asks why she's so persistent about defending him. Rachel Elizabeth there calls for them to stop bickering, and then Annabeth yells at her, saying to stay out of it, and she starts to say, if it wasn't for you, but then her voice breaks, and she starts to sob. And I never want to see Annabeth sad like this, even when she's being potentially unfair. She's just too nice and too good of an egg to be crying. Percy feels bad and wants to comfort her, but he, first off, doesn't really know what to do. And second, he's still feeling the weird after effects of Kronos' slowing time magic. And also just remembering, oh, right, the Lord of Time wants to murder me and all of my loved ones and the whole world. So his brain isn't necessarily firing on all cylinders right now. Nico says that they have to continue on. Percy helps Rachel Elizabeth Dare to her feet and thanks her for all of the assistance. She says that Percy owes her a ton of favors, and if he dies, she can't cash in on them, so she has to keep him alive. Great response. Nice. Great response. Percy kneels next to Annabeth, apologizes, and says that they have to go. She agrees, and she says she's all right. And then I wrote, she's not all right. And the narrator, Percy, says, she was clearly not all right. Percy thinks that they should head back to New York, but then he sees Grover's trademark Rasta cap on the ground. It's crumpled up like a muddy boot has stepped on it, and Percy then notices footprints that look like Grover's and Tyson's. Percy says that they should follow them. Nico asks, what about Camp Half-Blood? Annabeth says they have to find Grover and Tyson because they are their friends, so they proceed, and they approach a large cave that has a bunch of stalagmites. And there's a river running through it, and beside that river is Tyson holding an unmoving Grover in his arms. I was terrified, absolutely terrified, because Grover is pretty high on my characters I could see them killing off list, and I would not be okay. I would be absolutely crushed. When you read this, were you worried that it was going to be dead Grover, or were you thinking he was going to be all right?
I just kept reading really fast. So.
That is a good way to not have to deal with emotions, is just keep reading.
Yeah, I wasn't taking notes, so I just sped through. I was like, let's find out. Millisecond of emotion there.
There are certain times, and I wonder if there was a way where I could have my computer track my words per minute or something when I take the notes, but there are certain times when I'm reading really quickly when I'm worried that a character might be dead so that I can get through it a little bit quicker. Now, Grover's unmoving in Tyson's arms. They run over. They see that Grover is not dead, but he is shivering as if he is freezing to death. Percy asks what happened, and Tyson says so many things. Large snake, large dogs, men with swords. But then we got close to here. Grover was excited. He ran. Then we reached this room, and he fell. Like this. And I don't know exactly what all the little spin-off stories are in the books, like the Demigod Files and the Demigod Diaries. I would love a little short story of what did Grover and Tyson go through in the Labyrinth. I have no idea if it's something. I hope it's something. And if it's not, I hope Uncle Rick eventually writes it. I know he's adding more things to the canon, so that could be very cool. And you can't tell me anything.
Nope, can't say anything.
Lest your trapdoor be activated, that we certainly installed in the stage here. Tyson adds that Grover said, "We are close," before falling and hitting his head on some rocks. Percy remembers that the only time he's seen Grover passed out was back in New Mexico when they were near Pan. And I'm thinking, all right, this is really gearing up to be a Pan chapter. Percy looks and he sees an entrance to another cave within the cave farther down. It has crystal columns, and Percy tells Grover to wake up. Grover groans, being Groanver. Annabeth splashes water on him. I like that there was one person clapping and then a very loud boo. The exact correct response to that joke. Annabeth splashes water on Grover and he wakes saying, quote, splurg. He is surprised to see Percy and Annabeth and he asks what happened. Percy says he passed out from the presence of Pan and he directs him to look at this cave entrance, adding that something powerful is behind it. So I was feeling incredibly hyped. Percy introduces Tyson and Grover to Rachel Elizabeth Dare since the three of them have not met yet.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was literally my reaction when I read this. The narrator says something like, I had to make a round of introductions because they hadn't met. And I was like, oh yeah, they haven't. They conveniently keep splitting up every time Percy has Rachel Elizabeth Dare with him. Tyson tells Rachel Elizabeth Dare that she's pretty, which upsets Annabeth. And I just need this to stop. I want to live in the world where Rachel Elizabeth Dare and Annabeth become friends. That would be such a fun pairing. And I understand Annabeth's frustrations and jealousy and stuff, but they're just cool, and when you have cool people in proximity, you want them to like each other. And I just want them to get along. Who's to say? For anyone listening at home, Kelly shrugged her shoulders and tilted her head to the side. Percy and Annabeth help Grover up. Percy tells Grover to lean on him for support, and they make their way across the river. Annabeth guesses that they are in an undiscovered area of Carlsbad Caverns. Percy asks why she thinks this, and she says that Carlsbad is in New Mexico, so this could explain the point in book 3 when Grover passed out. I thought that was pretty clever and good deductive reasoning by Annabeth. As they approach the crystal columns, Percy feels Pan's presence in a way stronger than what he's felt in the presence of the Olympic gods. It just feels different and he feels stronger. He says he feels like, quote, one of those plants in a time-lapse video, which I think is a perfect way to put it.
Does that mean if they're in Carlsbad, does that mean they're out of the labyrinth now?
I think so.
Like
it
they took an exit out?
Yeah, I think it could be like Alcatraz and Mount Tam where they poke out for just a little bit. And that would make sense because there was a cave and then another cave.
Yeah.
I don't know at what point you become Labyrinth. Like, when does the Labyrinth end and the world begin, you know? Feels like a slippery slope of boundaries.
It also makes sense that Pan isn't in the Labyrinth, that he's still in the world. Because, I mean, everything we've met in the Labyrinth so far has been pretty scary.
But I was told by Guillermo del Toro that it was Pan's Labyrinth. I still have not seen that movie. I have no idea what happens except for the guy has eyeballs in the hands. That is all I know. I messed up in an earlier episode. I confused David Bowie's Labyrinth and Pan's Labyrinth, showing how little I know about it. I'll watch it at some point.
I know nothing either. I've never seen it.
We'll watch it together. We can make a bonus episode. Yeah. I got to finish the Battle of the Labyrinth, though, because I don't want any spoilers, you know?
Yeah.
What if they...
You're getting close.
I am getting close, which is exciting. Let's get back to the book, though. Everyone is noticeably feeling the effects of being around Pan as well. They enter this cave, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare lets out a wow. Narrator Percy then describes it, and it's very cool. Quote, the walls glittered with crystals, red, green, and blue. In the strange light, beautiful plants grew, giant orchids, star-shaped flowers, vines bursting with orange and purple berries that crept among the crystals. The cave floor was covered with green moss. Overhead, the ceiling was higher than a cathedral, sparkling like a galaxy of stars. In the center of the cave stood a Roman-style bed, gilded wood shaped like a curly U with velvet cushions. Animals lounged around it, but they were animals that shouldn't have been alive. There was a dodo bird, something that looked like a cross between a wolf and a tiger, a huge rodent like the mother of all guinea pigs, and roaming behind the bed, picking berries with its trunk, was a woolly mammoth. Super cool.
Very cool.
Very cool.
I don't know what the rodent is supposed to be, but I was thinking it was from the Princess Bride, the rodents of unusual sizes.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know if those were specific references because I don't know half wolf, half tiger. I've not heard of that particular hybrid. Maybe there's some sort of mythological background, but
maybe.
I don't know.
My first thought was a liger.
Right.
Isn't that
Napoleon Dynamite? Yes, the classic
that's
film.
a weird cut, but no, that's a
But that would be a lion and a
lion and tiger. Yeah, never
Yeah.
mind.
But I thought those like actually exist. I think they're real things. Says the boy wearing a narwhal sweater. Apparently. On the bed is an old satyr. was very excited at there being an old satyr. It has blue eyes, curly white hair, a white pointed beard, gray furry legs, and giant curved brown horns. And there are reed pipes around its neck. So this has got to be Pan. Grover collapses to his knees and exclaims, "Lord Pan!" So we found Pan. Very cool stuff.
Yay.
I'm so excited. I'm so happy for Grover. It's really fun for him. Pan has sadness in his eyes, and he tells Grover that he's been waiting a very long time for him. And because he specifically said for him and later stuff happens throughout this chapter, it does seem like an intentional choice that Pan has sought out Grover to be the person who found him. And I think that is very cool and makes me very happy as someone that does not enjoy the grumpy folks from the Council of Cloven Elders.
Yeah.
Grover tells Pan that he got lost. Pan laughs, and his laughter fills the room with cheer, even causing the dodo, whose name is Dee Dee, to hum a song that Percy thinks is It's a Small World, which is a weird choice for a song to sing while happy. I wouldn't really associate that song with being happy. I would associate that song with very creepy dolls in Disney World and just getting something stuck in your head and being very upset about it.
Sure, but I think of it as happy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the It's a Small World ride and the song?
I think I went on that ride as a young enough child that it was still like happy for me. I'm sure my parents weren't as happy, but I was young enough and now it invokes nostalgia.
Your parents certainly weren't as unhappy as my parents were because my sister at a very young age decided that that was her favorite ride and she took my parents on it 17 times in a row. And I've been on that ride once recently and once was far too many. I think that case is a very high list in my argument of you shouldn't take kids under 5 to Disney World because first off, they're not going to remember it if they're younger than that. So that's just a waste of money and time and all that kind of stuff. But also, what if they make decisions like, let's go on It's a Small World 17 times in a row?
I suppose I was 8 when I went. And I think I probably rode it the appropriate number of times.
Once?
Once.
Yeah.
And I was also massively terrified of the Tower of Terror.
Well, I mean, it's not the Tower of Fun.
I know, but it created a lifelong fear of elevators for me. That like still I get in an elevator and like there's something in me that does not like it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy that less, seeing as you and I lived in an apartment and just signed a lease for another apartment, which are
With elevators.
elevator accessible.
Yep.
I mean, the new place is going to be what? An undisclosed floor of a number lower than 10?
Look, I'm a big girl. I'm very brave.
You are.
I'll deal with it now. But still, there's something in me that's like, I do not like this.
Well, the sublet that we had in New York for a month, we were on the 49th floor. I was
Yeah, I
very
did not
proud
like
of you
that.
for conconquering that.
I actually actively did not like that.
Oh, yeah, I was there.
For the first week, I didn't leave unless Mike was with me. And then eventually I was like, all right, I gotta leave eventually. Like he was like out for the day and I was like, I really need to run some errands. I'm gonna do it. I can do this.
Percy notices that Pan looks tired, and he then notices that he's the only one of the team not kneeling, so he also joins in the kneeling. Annabeth tells Pan that this place is more beautiful than any designed building. As a resident architect, do you agree?
Probably.
Okay. Even more so than the coffee shop and the bar that you've designed? Come on.
I mean, that's the most beautiful thing in the whole world. But
If you guys find yourself in New York City, go to Bergamo's Bar or Company Culture Coffee. And if you say, wow, this place is gorgeous, now you know why.
yeah, it's a very cool thing as an architect to see your work and get to enjoy it because buildings take a very long time from design to construction. And usually the team changes. You don't end up on the same project for the full length of it. And a lot of times it's not being built in the same city as you're living in, or it gets built and it's a private embassy or a residential building and you don't get to go in it. So I'm very lucky that the project I worked on for 4 years was 10 minutes away from where we used to live and had a bar and a coffee place in it that I could go to whenever I wanted to. So I'm very lucky and it is the most gorgeous place in the world.
Yeah.
Plus, the bar is actually very.
It's
good.
actually very
and
good,
the
yeah.
coffee's actually very good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever we vacation, I know a lot of architects that like to go see architectural things. I prefer not to. I prefer to go see nature when we typically vacation.
Yeah.
So I believe it that it's the most beautiful thing.
Right. And I think it's cool that you can see your buildings. When I was an engineer,
Yeah.
it was not as cool to see the engineering things I worked on. But that's why I do all these live shows so that I can see a crowd and go, see, people do listen. The numbers aren't pretend. So Pan is delighted that she likes it, and he says that it's one of the final wild places left. His realm above is gone aside from a few pockets. Grover asks Pan to come back with him to the elders, adding that Pan can save the wild. But he tells Grover that he chose well. Grover is confused. Pan begins to hint that he's going to die, and he mentions that he warned the satyr Lysis of Ephesus, and I just wrote, Dr. Moya, question mark, question mark, question mark, who tried to spread the word that the great god Pan is dead. And Annabeth finishes his sentence to reveal that she is also familiar with the story. Grover says that that story wasn't true, and Pan says that his kind, Grover's kind, didn't believe it to be true, and he appreciates them refusing to accept it because it did prolong his life, but it only has delayed the inevitable. Grover doesn't want to let this happen. Pan says that Grover's friend Nico would understand, and Nico says he's dying, he should have died long ago. This is more like a memory. And Grover points out that gods cannot die. Pan says that they can fade when everything they stand for is gone. Quote, when they cease to have power and their sacred places disappear, the wild, my dear Grover, is so small now, so shattered, that no god can save it. My realm is gone. That is why I need you to carry a message. You must go back to the council. You must tell the satyrs and the dryads and the other spirits of nature that the great god Pan is dead. Tell them of my passing, because they must stop waiting for me to save them. I cannot. The only salvation you must make yourself. Each of you must. And then Dee Dee interrupts by humming Kumbaya.
Nice, Dee Dee.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were excited for the nature stuff for this chapter.
Yeah, I was. I liken this to a very Lorax type story. And as a Lorax enthusiast, I thought it was a really beautiful chapter because in the Lorax, you have what kind of creature is he? He's a Lorax who takes care of the wilderness. And as it gets more and more destroyed, he eventually just disappears and then gives the responsibility of bringing it back onto the every person. And so it's very, very similar as a metaphor. And I did a book report on the Lorax when I was a very young child.
What grade?
4th grade, maybe?
If you find the book report, we got to make this a bonus episode on Patreon. That'd be so good.
I'll look for it. My mom saves everything, so I bet I can find it.
Awesome. That sounds great. Pan sighs, calls Dee Dee a cynic for singing Kumbaya, and then tells Grover, each of you must take up my calling. And I didn't know if he was referring to the whole team. We'll get into that. Grover whimpers, but no. Pan tells him, be strong, you have found me, and now you must release me. You must carry on my spirit. It can no longer be carried by a god. It must be taken up by all of you. So very much a clarification there. Percy then has the same realization that he doesn't just mean the satyrs, he means half-bloods and humans as well. And I gotta say, this is really good environmental writing from Uncle Rick, especially for a book in the mid-2000s. I guess this would be fresh off of Al Gore coming out with An Inconvenient Truth, maybe? I don't know when that movie came out, but regardless, I don't think it was very common in the late 2000s to be pro-environment and not be called, some sort of weirdo. So I'm glad he's taken the stance in a kid's book.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when we were watching The West Wing recently. When was that show made? 2000s?
Early
90s?
Late 90s into the early 2000s.
Yeah, we were very disappointed to find that they were dealing with a lot of the same issues as we currently deal with.
Very, very depressing to be like, how old is this? 20 years old? Oh, it's the same stuff?
Yeah, and climate change was one of the issues that they talked about in an episode. And I was like, oh my gosh, you could plop this episode into today and it would still be the same. I think that probably we were younger at the time, and so we didn't recognize it as a big issue when we were growing up. But I think it was a big issue to adults, or at least to some adults. But I think it's really amazing writing to bring it to the level for kids too.
Yeah, because then they'll grow up and be more motivated to do stuff.
Yeah.
Unlike these old ass politicians that we have in America that hate doing anything good. They only like money and making things worse. You guys have the same problem here? We can all relate.
Universal problem, I guess.
Woo-hoo! Let's go back to Percy Jackson. Something that's more fun. Pan tells Percy that he knows what Percy saw today, but he tries to dissuade his doubts by saying that when the time comes, Percy will not be ruled by fear. And this is pretty cool. Pan then tells Annabeth that her time is coming and she will play a great role, though not the one she imagined, which I find very intriguing. He tells Tyson not to despair because heroes rarely live up to expectations. I'm guessing this is a nod to Briare's, but Tyson will live among the Cyclopes for generations. And he tells Rachel Elizabeth Dare that he knows she doesn't think they can make amends, but she is just as important as her father. And I'm very intrigued to know who her father is, and we will get into it in the beginning of chapter 18. Rachel Elizabeth Dare tries to interject, but Pan says he knows she doesn't believe it now, but implores her to look for opportunities in the future as they will come. He doesn't say anything to Nico, which felt rude. And then Pan asks Grover if he will carry his message. Grover says he can't. Pan says that he can, since he is the strongest, the bravest, his heart is true, and he believed in Pan more than anyone ever did. Grover corrects, saying that he does not want to carry this message. Pan understands, but explains that Pan used to mean rustic and now means all. And then I went, oh, right, pansexual, duh. He says, you must tell each one you meet if you would find Pan, take up Pan's spirit, remake the wild a little at a time, each in your own corner of the world. You cannot wait for anyone else, even a god, to do that for you. And then this made me feel better about the time recently when I walked in 7-degree weather in New York City, 5 blocks to drop off compost from the place we were subletting to a compost bin, as I was walking with wind and literal tears and snot running down my face going, why am I doing this? If Exxon would just stop putting oil in the world, I wouldn't have to compost.
I know. It is, we all try to do our little, or we try to do our little bit of a part. I mean, it's hard because you know that as one person, you have less impact than a corporation, but I think that it still makes a difference.
Yeah. Every little bit helps. So Pan, I hope you smiled down upon me because I was so cold. It was so miserable.
I came up with this pun while you were talking, and I'm going to unashamedly say it. Grover was handpicked. He was pan-picked.
Nice. Well done. I know no one booed Kelly.
I heard some groans. Yeah.
Grover wipes away tears. He stands and he says that he spent his whole life looking for Pan, but he now releases him. Pan smiles, thanks him, and blesses him. He then turns to white mist, and energy fills the room, but it's in a good way, not like the bad energy that filled the room when Kronos was back when Percy was there on Mount Tam. This is the nice balance between good and evil. We have evil Titan back, but now we have good God helping our teams. Smoke enters everyone's mouths. So this is some sort of leveling up, which I kind of accidentally got right early on. I was like, when you reach the middle of the labyrinth, do you like gain experience points? And I guess they kind of did. I don't know what this is going to do for them, but I would imagine they just have a bit more juice. And narrator Percy notes that more smoke went into Grover's mouth than everyone else's. So I'm very excited to see what sort of leveling up happens for Grover, who's already gotten stronger each book. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to see next time Grover's in a fight or something, what he's able to bust out.
Yeah.
The crystals begin to dim, the animals look sad, Dee Dee sighs, and then, they all turn to gray dust. I didn't think they would die so quickly, but they all just vanish.
They were all extinct creatures.
Yeah. I get it. That just kind
Poor
of
Dee Dee.
I just feel like Pan would have maybe said something like, oh, and by the way, goodbye, friends. The vines wither, and then the team is just left alone in a dark cave. They never got to eat the weird purple and orange berries. I was really sad that we didn't get to see what those tasted like. Grover takes a deep breath. Percy asks if he's okay, and Grover just looks defeated, but he says we should go now and tell them the great god Pan is dead. That's the end of chapter 17, and now we'll do a little bit of chapter 18, which is called Grover Causes a Stampede, which sounds exciting, unless you are Simba/Mufasa.
Now, chapter 17, one of the things I really liked about it, when Pan talks about the untouched places of the wild, makes me think of all the places that we've been that might be those little corners he's talking about. And it's
like
nice.
Every national park.
Yeah, I mean, but even in some national parks in the US, at least, some of them are much more visited than others. And some of them you can see cities in the distance. There's one in particular, Denali National Park is a national preserve as well, which means that there are no roads, there's no people, there's no buildings for half of the park. And it's really an incredible, amazing place. It's in Alaska in the US, and it's just an incredible untouched place. And that's the one that comes to mind the most. I mean, there's some more places we went to in New Zealand also that really come to mind, like really untouched places where you can't see any civilization. And it's really cool.
And I'm sure Ireland has those places too.
Yes.
The Cliffs of Dover? Is that somewhere else? That's England? Oh, those cliffs suck. They're overrated. Now, my guess for chapter 18, Grover Causes Stampede, is that Grover uses some sort of nature power to channel animals to fight off a monster. It's been a couple of chapters since we've had some sort of fight. So that would be my guess. I've not read far enough in 18 to know, so we'll have to see. Now, our team returns to Times Square. Gross. Absolutely gross. If any of you guys go to New York, do not go to Times Square. It's bad. Don't go. It's not worth it. What's the bad one here? Temple Bar?
Temple Bar.
Imagine if that was 1,000 times worse.
Yes.
Don't do it. Percy isn't sure what feels less real when they get back into the city, New York or the Crystal Cave that they were just at. Percy gets into an alley for better acoustics and then whistles 5 times very loudly. And the Pegasi arrive, which I'm very excited about because I love all our Pegasi friends. Blackjack and 4 of his friends arrive, and Blackjack says, "Yo, boss, you lived!" I love it. Never change, Blackjack. Never, ever, ever change. Except I guess you were a girl and now you're a boy. But aside from that, never change your personality, Blackjack. Percy says that he's just lucky that way and that they need rides quickly. Blackjack says, "That's my specialty. Oh man, you got that Cyclops with you? Yo, Guido, how's your back holding up?" Gold. Guido complains, but begrudgingly agrees to take Tyson. Everyone climbs aboard except for Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And I realize, oh, right, they're going to Camp Half-Blood. She's not supposed to go there. And that's exactly what Rachel Elizabeth Dare says. She points to Annabeth and says, "She said I couldn't go." Percy nods and realizes that Annabeth is right. He looks to Annabeth, who is pretending to be busy with her Pegasus, which is a thing that I can relate to. Big proponent of the, I have something very important to do on my phone right now to avoid this awkward situation. Percy thanks Rachel Elizabeth Dare because they couldn't have done this without her. Rachel Elizabeth Dare says she wouldn't have missed it, though she could have done without almost dying and witnessing Pan's death, which valid, totally valid. Percy asks about the comment Pan made about her dad, and she uncomfortably reveals that her dad is a famous businessman, and then we get this exchange. "You mean you're rich?" And Rachel Elizabeth Dare says, "Well, yeah." Percy says, "So that's how you got the chauffeur to help us. You just said your dad's name and..." "Yes, Percy. My dad's a land developer. He flies all over the world looking for tracts of undeveloped land." And then she has a shaky breath as she says, "The wild, he buys it up. I hate it, but he plows it down and builds ugly subdivisions and shopping centers. And now that I've seen Pan's death..." And then I realized that's why Pan said something. But when I read this, my genuine reaction was, "Oh no, that sucks so much. Her dad sucks." And it's like I knew her dad was going to be someone important. I didn't realize he was going to be important and then also really genuinely terrible.
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, she's in a great position to have the ear of somebody in power if she wants to try to do something.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like he's going to be the type to listen to her, but you would hope that she could maybe motivate him, or at least it could have some power where she's pushing against it, kind of like how Abigail Disney right now is doing a whole like Disney should treat their workers better campaign. I feel like she could be like, "Yeah, my dad's the big land developer, but I'm Greta Thunberg. Thunberg? Great.
Thunberg. Yep. That's what you said. Right?
Realize I've never said it out loud once in my life.
Nope.
And that's the joy of live podcasts. I can't edit this over.
I realize I have said it many times out loud wrong. So
we're all learning today. But yeah, she could have the power of, even if her dad won't listen to her, maybe it will pack an extra punch because of who her dad is, an extra sort of oomph behind it. Percy tells her that she can't blame herself for that, and she says that Percy doesn't know the worst of it. And I wrote, "It gets worse?" Which I could only imagine means that not only is he taking land, but he's probably like kicking out indigenous people or something. Like there's gotta be a next step. And it just really is a big old stinker that her dad sucks so much. But I would love for her to become climate activist Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She says that she shouldn't have said anything and that she hates discussing her family. Percy says, "Look, don't worry about it. It's cool." And he says that she was fantastic and brave, and that is all he will judge her by. Rachel Elizabeth Dare appreciates that and says that Percy can call her if he ever wants to hang with a mortal again. And I wrote, "Please do." But then Percy says, "Yeah, sure." What an awful response. Terrible response. Thankfully, Rachel Elizabeth Dare recognizes that that was a terrible response. Narrator Percy says, "She knit her eyebrows. I guess I sounded unenthusiastic or something, but that's not how I meant it. I just wasn't sure what to say with all my friends standing around." And by that, he means Annabeth. And I guess my feelings had gotten pretty messed up in the last couple of days. That's pretty valid, too. So then Percy tries to save it by saying, "I mean, I'd like that." Good job, Percy. Well done. Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that her number isn't in the phone book, which makes sense because her dad is super famous. Right. Percy says that he's got it, and she asks, oh, do you still have it written on your hand? And he says he memorized it, and that is an actual save. This does make her happy, and then she says, see you later, Percy Jackson. Go save the world for me, okay? And all right, flirtatious Rachel Elizabeth there. Before, I didn't think that she was ever actively flirting with him. This is certainly a step beyond, and this is getting very complicated. Mm-hmm. And I know that Percy is probably going to end up with Annabeth, and that they're not dating yet, so it's okay, but also, Percy, come on. You're a semi-taken man. Rachel Elizabeth there then walks down 7th Avenue, disappears into the crowds. He returns to the group, and Nico is struggling with his Pegasus. Do you have any sort of comments on when we're down? Or?
No, I wasn't allowed to say anything, which is why my face looks like this.
Okay. I can't tell if that face is I want to say something, no, please stop rambling, Mike, or what you're describing.
This face is me trying to neither smile, nor frown, nor talk, nor make noises, and it does look similar to my I have something to say face, because I do have something to say, but I'm not allowed to say it. So.
That is very true. Thank you for being such a good guest. Mm-hmm. I've put you in a very fun, uncomfortable situation.
Mm-hmm.
Nico's struggling with his Pegasus because the winged horse does not want to let Nico mount him. This Pegasus complains to Percy that Nico smells like dead people. Blackjack interjects, hey, come on now, pork pie. Lots of demigods smell weird. It ain't their fault. Oh, I didn't mean you, boss. Every Blackjack quote is gold. I will never not put them verbatim into my notes and then read them on the pod. Nico tells them to go on without him. He says he doesn't want to return to Camp Half-Blood anyway. Percy insists that they need his help. Nico crosses his arms grumpily. Annabeth then puts a hand on his shoulder and says, please, and he softens and agrees. And I was confused as to why he would do this. Nico says, for you, but I'm not staying. And narrator Percy picks up in this saying, I raised an eyebrow at Annabeth, like, how come all of a sudden Nico listens to you? She stuck her tongue out at me. So everyone is aboard a Pegasus, and they head off to Long Island. They land in the cabin area, and they are met by Chiron, Silenus from the Council of the Cloven Elders, and some Apollo archers. Chiron is surprised to see Nico, but he is not surprised about the Daedalus Quintus reveal and the fact that Kronos is back. Mm-hmm. Chiron says that he feared this situation would happen, and he hopes that they at least slowed Kronos, but he anticipates that the army will soon arrive and they are going to be out for blood. He calls for them to hurry, but Silenus stops them and asks about Pan. He threatens to revoke Grover's license since he's 3 weeks late, but Grover says that searchers' licenses don't matter anymore because Pan is dead. And Silenus is enraged, thinking that this is sacrilegious and it's untrue. He threatens to exile Grover for saying such things, but Percy then backs him up, saying that the entire team witnessed this and they will vouch for him. Silenus calls them all liars and nature destroyers, which felt completely uncalled for.
Yeah.
Like, how all they said is that Penn is dead. Why would he be like, you're lying? And also, you probably dug up some grass and stuff. Like, it just feels like an out-of-line accusation. Chiron says that they can discuss this later. Silenus demands that they discuss this now. And Chiron says, Silenus, my camp is under attack. The matter of Pan has waited 2,000 years. I fear it will have to wait a bit longer, assuming we are still here this evening, which is the most profound way to say, we've got bigger fish to fry. That's the most profound way to say it possible.
Yep.
Narrator Percy then ends this little segment and will end this act on the following quote, and on that happy note, he readied his bow and galloped towards the woods, leaving us to follow as best we could. Any thoughts on this chapter and change that we've discussed?
This is my favorite book, as I have said, and we're getting into some of the really great chapters. So sorry, Johnny, that you couldn't do this, but I hope I did him proud. So
I think you did, and I know Johnny's having a great time as he is, I believe, on an airplane to the Maldives for a 2-week honeymoon.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have to feel bad for Johnny right now. He's in a pretty good situation.
Well, he will be on that airplane for like 3 days.
It is going to be a very long time, so maybe, but I would assume he got some sort of fancy schmancy class. It wasn't on his registry, but some relative probably upgraded their tickets. Come on.
Oh, no.
But anyway, that is the end of this first act. Please give Kelly a round of applause for her incredible work here covering this portion of the book. Now, we will be back for Act 2, where we're going to talk about Potterless. People listening, we will be back after the mid-roll break for Q&A, so don't go anywhere there.
Hello and welcome to the Admiral of the Labyrinth Japan edition. Kelly and I recently got to Japan. We were here for vacation. Tour up is complete. It was an absolutely wonderful time. I'm thankful to everyone that came to every single show. It was such a blast. I hope to return in the future, and I'm very excited to be exploring more of the world. Now let's talk about some updates for the podcast. Recently, I put a bonus episode on Patreon. I put up bonus episodes every month or so, and the bonus episode that I did this time was a video bonus episode where I reviewed all of the different cover arts that exist for the third book, Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. There are some good covers, there are some bad covers, there's of course the British covers, which are wild, and a lot of these covers for this book had blackjack on them, and some utilized photorealistic horses, and they look very interesting. So if you want to check out that, as well as loads of other bonus content, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon and support the show, and then you can get access to a whole bunch of stuff like the bonus episodes and director's commentary and Q&As that we do, another video thing, monthly Q&As where you can ask questions and I answer them, and my notes and audio extras and bloopers and all sorts of fun stuff. Speaking of fun stuff, I'm going to be doing live shows in North America this year, and the first set of tickets for those shows are live. So if you live in Seattle, Washington, Vancouver, British Columbia, Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, or Toronto, Ontario, you should head on over to thenewsolympian.com/live right now to get tickets. All of the shows, except for Seattle, are going to be half TNO, half Potterless. The Seattle show is all TNO because I've been to Seattle in the past, and that's the policy coming forward. New city, half and half, repeat city, just TNO. So you can get tickets at thenewsolympian.com/live. And, earlier I was talking about the Patreon. I want to give a shout out to the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. And I would also like to apologize for the washing machine in our hotel room making a bunch of noise. Hopefully my sound cleanup software is cleaning up that sound, but I'm very grateful to all the folks who are supporting the show. And I want to give a shout out to the folks who've joined most recently. So shout out to our newest Super God tier patron, Mother of Apollo. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Prime Rose and Mirza Polat. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Paulina Prosky and Warteltjus7. Thank you all so much for your support. When you are doing laundry, may Poseidon bless you that all your clothes are washed nice and cleanly and they aren't too wet. And when you put them in the dryer, your line dryer or anything like that, they are ready to go quickly and perfectly. Now, if you're all caught up on the Newest Olympian and you are looking for a new podcast to listen to, I make a whole bunch of shows. I'm an independent podcast boy, and I make a bunch of podcasts that I think you would enjoy. Just realized that rhymes, so that's fun. Maybe I should make that a tagline. Anyway, one of the shows that I made a season of that I'm very proud of, I made it with a whole team of very talented people, is called Modern Muckraker. Modern Muckraker is a podcast where I play the role of a journalist who is convinced that he is completing the world's most important investigative research, but in actuality, the questions that we answered on this show are: if you lost half of an orchestra, what remaining instruments would create the worst possible sound? How many IHOP locations can you go to and eat free pancakes at during one National Free Pancake Day? And more. Lots of interviews with highly overqualified experts. The whole team that wrote the script is filled with incredibly funny people, and it was just a delight to make it. And you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Modern Muckraker or going to our website, modernmuck.com. Now, before we wrap up here, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of these ads will be read by me, such as one by one of our newer sponsors, Headspace, which is a cool meditation/sleep app that I have genuinely used and genuinely enjoy. Some of the other ads won't be read by me. Those are inserted locally. So if you live in Japan, you might hear an ad in Japanese. And if any of these ads have weird stuff in them, like they're gambling related or anything like that, please send me an email to thenewsolympian@gmail.com. I believe now that we've switched to the new hosting site, that's been less of a problem. Had some weird political stuff come through, but we've sent in complaints for those, and hopefully those get squashed. But if anything's going on with the ads, let me know. And if anything's going on with the episodes, I know some folks have still had that issue where the episode repeats and plays earlier parts of an episode and stuff like that, or even ads not getting placed when I say they're going to happen, but at different points. If you get any issues, please email me at thenewsolympian@gmail.com and I can pass them along to our hosting team. But I believe that the bugs in the system are getting worked out. Hopefully that is the case. Anyway, we're going to cut to those ads, and once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian.
So the first of this comes from longtime listener and supporter of the show, Senan. Senan says, "Hey Shubes, as per the NBA trades and Grumpy Boys that you talk about on Horse, if there were to be trades between Hogwarts houses and Camp Half-Blood cabins, who would you swap to where between the houses and the cabins or between the two institutions to cause the best drama so you could get a really good and juicy podcast episode out of it?" So if we're swapping people between the two, what would make the most drama?
I don't know about drama, but swapping Chiron for Dumbledore is an upgrade for the Harry crew.
It is. And I feel like it's quite a downgrade for Camp Half-Blood because Dumbledore struggles just to run a school. If he has to run a place that is constantly attacked by evil Greek mythological characters, that place is dead. That place is not making it past book 1.
He would just give only motivational speeches with no true advice built in.
By motivational, you mean cryptic.
Yeah. That one.
Just say these vague things and be like, you didn't put together my machinations. So yeah, I think that would be a huge downgrade. I don't know if any of the campers would make any sort of drama, though. I feel like if you swapped out Annabeth for someone less helpful, Percy would be screwed.
Oh, yeah. If we're not
'Cause
swapping them out for their counterparts, like
Yeah.
Annabeth and Hermione, you know.
Yeah, that would be a trouble, though, because as we saw in book 1, Hermione not necessarily quick on her feet. So I think that would not be the best situation. Annabeth often has to be quick on her feet. So that could cause some drama there. I also do think if we got one of or both of Fred and George into the cabin, maybe if we just trade Fred and George for the Stoll brothers, just see like what different mischief they would pull at each other's schools, that could
That'd
make
be
some
fun, for
juicy
sure.
things, just to see what they would do to the other school/camp.
Yeah, that'd be yeah, for sure. Switching with their counterparts is an interesting method. You switch Harry and Percy, then what's going on? That's maximum drama. Which
Harry's
story's
dead
which?
in book 1. He's not. He's a goner. Okay, so this next one comes from Lydia, and the subject is Dublin liger information from a zoologist. Not a question, just a comment to say ligers are in fact real. They are a hybrid of a male lion and a female tiger, while a tigon is a female lion and a male tiger combination. So now we're all smarter.
Tigon.
We can continue on to the next question. This one is from Louise. Hey, Mike and Kelly, if you were given the power to choose the theme tune, intro, or credits for the new PJO Disney Plus series from an existing song, what would you choose? Thanks for all the great podcast content, particularly through the pandemic times.
Oh, I saw this one in the back of the green room too, and I said the TNO theme song.
And I like that because then Disney would have to pay me money. And me and Bettina Capomanes would be a lot more wealthy. So I also vote that. Good answer.
Yep.
Very, very good answer. Okay, this next one is from Rachel. Hi, my questions are, 1, what monster would you rather fight from Potter and/or PJO? So any sort of monsters, I don't know, maybe like blobber worms so that I wouldn't really have to fight anything daunting.
I'd like to prove my worth to fight the scariest monster, the pixie. So
Okay.
that's the one obviously, most terrifying one.
At least according to Seamus, yeah.
Cornish pixies.
Cornish pixies. I would also like to fight the Sphinx from the Harry Potter universe because it actually asked a riddle as opposed to the Sphinx from PJO that just gave not cool trivia questions.
I would like neither of those.
I love a riddle, so I think I would like to fight the Sphinx. I feel very good about myself. And I nailed Spider when I first read it because I was
Nice.
in my mid-20s. Number 2, what mythical location would you visit from both Potter and PJO?
I would visit Pan's room that we were just in.
Yeah, that would be a really cool one.
Or Calypso's Island. It sounds pretty idyllic too.
Yeah, that one does seem really nice. I've never been to the Hoover Dam. It'd be fun just to check it out. But no, I think it would be cool to go up to Olympus, like to actually take the
yeah.
elevator up to the...
Well, I wouldn't like that. That's too far in the
yeah,
elevator.
right. As we've established, you do not like elevators. But in Potter, I mean, it would be cool to go to one of the other magical schools that we don't know about. Like maybe the Japanese one that's Mahutakoro, or the Brazilian one that is Casa Labruxo, both which just translate to like magic school in their respective languages.
I mean, Hogwarts would be cool to visit too.
I don't know, that place is scary.
Yeah, true.
That place is terrifying. They don't even have bathrooms, they just poop anywhere. Come on, I don't want to go to that place. Okay, so this one is from Ariane? Ariane. The subject line is insert anti-English sentiment here. News Olympian question. What do you know about Irish mythology? Nothing.
Banshees. We've just
Now I know
learned.
banshees.
Banshees.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
I feel like I could say stuff, but it would be fear of being incredibly stereotypical if I was like, I don't know, leprechauns.
Okay. Yeah.
That's about it.
Is that
Does that count?
is that even Irish?
All right.
Yeah.
It's a muddle.
So no, we
I
never
do
said
not know
that.
much.
Nope.
I would love to learn more. Maybe I will tomorrow as we will go out and about in Dublin and see some stuff. Now, a question for Kelly. What has been your favorite experience from any of your Irish trips thus far?
I mean, this is pretty great.
This is pretty
very
good. Gonna be
cool.
tough to top. Oh, what'd you do in Ireland? Oh, 100 people paid money to hear me and my wife talk. Pretty tough to beat.
The first time that I came here, my mom, my sister, and I rented a car and we drove from Dublin all the way down and around the south coast up to the west coast. We went through like Cork, Dingle, up to like Galway. And
I'm sorry, Dingle?
Dingle.
There's a town here called Dingle?
Dingle.
What a fun name.
Yeah.
That could genuinely be, maybe I should do this at other places of the tour, because we ran into this in Australia and New Zealand. If you played the trivia game with me of, is this an actual town or a stereotypical name for a town? If you were like Dingle and there was a true false question, I would have been like, false, there's no town named Dingle.
You're so
That's
offensive,
someone making
Kelly.
fun of Ireland.
But from Galway, we took a ferry over to Inishmore and we rented bikes. And we spent the whole day biking on the island and we saw like nobody. We came across this one house that I think was also a restaurant or just a lady feeding us out of her kitchen. One or the other. But like, it's in my top 5 meals of all time. The most incredible beef stew and Guinness chocolate cake. It was amazing. And then we continued, we biked around the whole island. We went as far west as we could. And then, because the only like the town where like the hostel we were staying and everything was all the way over on the other side of the island. So we started booking it because this was before like flashlights were on your phone. We had no flashlights. There were no street lights. It's like very, very sparse. We ran into a lot of sheep, but not a lot of people. And we're just like booking it as the sun goes down. Like, oh, look, the seals are over there. Oh, look, that's over there. Okay, we gotta go. And we got there like as the sun's going down, barely. But it was the most fun day. It was wonderful.
This is why you need to stay in more central Dublin so you can be guided by the light on top of the big €4 million spire that we learned about.
Yep, we learned about that
on the
today.
walking tour. It was very funny that we learned that it was going to be called the Millennium Spire, and then it didn't come out until March of 2003. As someone that procrastinates and is late on stuff, I sympathize. I love where you guys are at. This one comes from Allie, subject line, Boo England. Did you have a hairbrush on the table so you could throw it at Kronos if needed? That was not the answer, but now that will be my justification as why I have a hairbrush on stage every time I do one of these shows, which is to fix my hair so I look pretty on stage. But now I have a fun, cool justification, so thank you, Allie. Now it's a bit instead of just me wanting to look good in front of people. Huzzah! Now I'm not vapid, I'm funny.
You're prepared is where you are.
Exactly. Another question. Thanks for a great show, Mike and Kelly. You mentioned you love being out in nature. Are you going to, I'm going to butcher this one, Glendalough? Glendalough. My apologies.
Lock.
Lock.
Lake Lock.
It's O-U-G-H. What are you doing? Get it together. It's just one county over in Wicklow or Wicklow? Wicklow. It's the most beautiful, tranquil place with walks and hikes of varying length, easily doable in a morning or afternoon. Got a hike recommendation if we want to go on a hike. I do not know if we have time for a hike, but we have a recommendation.
I have been there.
Oh.
It is beautiful.
Okay.
I don't think we have time for it.
Okay.
Next time.
Next time, yeah. This trip is very much we are on tour, and if we have time to do vacation things cool, it's not the reverse. It's very much like, fly, do a show, fly, blah. Okay, this next one is from Alma. Question 1. Since you, Mike, and Kelly are the real-life version of Percy and Annabeth, who would you cast in the rest of your life? I feel like Stephen Parr could be a great Grover.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
we're,
that kind
we're
of thing.
equating
People in our life, folks that could be Percy Jackson characters.
Well, does this make your dad Poseidon?
I have to read more Poseidon before I give that vibe. I don't want to insult Joel P. Schubert. Though my dad is very good in the ocean. He grew up on the Jersey Shore, so he's very good at swimming and body surfing,
I was
which I
going to say
think
he
he was
has
about to
some
bring
beach
up.
vibes to him, which Poseidon definitely has, which is kind of funny.
My dad is very, very good at body surfing, where it's just kind of like he'll catch the wave and it's just his head sticking out of the water, and it looks so
He
funny.
looks so
It's just
silly.
so-
But it looks so silly that you think this is the most ridiculous thing. Why are they hyping it up so much? And then it's actually very hard to do.
It's hard to do, but it's very fun to do. And
Yeah.
it's also, it looks incredibly impressive and silly at the same time. Because like you can tell it's hard, but then
so
also just
funny.
like looks weird to see like a man stuck out of a wave
And Joel
perfectly
looks,
straight.
he looks so serious when
Joel
he does it.
always does
He's
look
a
very serious. I
person.
always do it with a big ear to ear
Yeah.
grin when I do it because I'm very having a good time. But Joel's always like
Very serious.
like wiping his hair out of his head by shaking his head. He's very intense on his body surfing. So yeah, maybe Joel could be Poseidon unless I
Yeah.
read the books and Poseidon turns out to be a big old jerk. Number 2, what supernatural being / creature in the I like that you called it the TNO universe, as if it's my book series now. In the TNO universe, would you be? So which supernatural being or creature would you be? I guess a god or a goddess could count here too.
Well, apparently, I'm Kelly with an I.
Oh, no.
I'm going off the only Kelly in the book.
You are far nicer than her.
I appreciate it.
Though you are pretty, which Percy says she is pretty, so
Thank you very much.
you got that
She's
going
like
for you.
fake pretty, where then you don't look at her and she's a monster again.
You're real pretty.
Thank you.
I have such a way with words. Can you see why she married me? You're real pretty. Will you date me?
Which monster or which supernatural?
Which supernatural being / creature?
I want to be Pan, and I don't want to leave. I want to come back, make it all wild.
Save the world.
Save the world.
Do it, yeah.
This is the Pan story now.
I want to be Hermes so that I would be very good at messaging and stuff, because sometimes I let messages fall through the cracks and I'm not very good about it. For like work stuff though. Like I'm definitely like a 0 inbox texting person, but not my other email addresses.
You're like a 1,000 inbox email person.
Well, that's my like personal one that has all like the spam stuff and things I got to unsubscribe for. My work email is a little bit better. That's at 16, which for me is incredible. The Potterless one though, as I am currently reading, is at 439. So look, there's lots of emails and there's lots of marked unread where they're like, you said a mean thing about Snape. I'm going to write a very long essay about why Snape's actually good. And then I just move to a folder, which I have called Snape, which I will never open. I also have one called Negative Mail. Just sort it and be like, nope, not reading that one.
Aww.
I don't know. Look, sometimes people say mean things to me
No,
on
it
the
happens.
internet.
People say mean things. I don't
Comes
like
with the job, baby. Okay, this one is from, this is a very, Kaylin, is it Roisin? Roisin? I should have known that from Roisin Conate. Damn it, my apologies. Roisin and Katie. Rick Riordan's name is Irish and he pronounces it wrong. I do know this. So the actual Irish traditional pronunciation, is that one what? Riordan? Riordan, yeah. But he says it Riordan, and he's admitted that his family pronounces it wrong. Like I found quotes because there was an early time where I was like, I looked it up and it's, the first thing I said was Riordan because when I Googled it, it was just like the traditional pronunciation. Then I saw stuff where it was like, no, he says it like Riordan. Then people told me I was wrong. Then I found an audio clip of Rick Riordan saying, I say my name Riordan like rye bread. My family mispronounces it. That's how we say it though. Sorry. And I was like, okay, that feels like a very succinct answer. So yes, I understand that traditionally it's supposed to be Riordan, but he says Riordan.
I didn't know that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, what a fool that guy is. But his books are damn good. Okay. This one is from Angelina, who sent this to the Newest Olympian and then forwarded it with, whoops, wrong email. Would it ever happen that the Newest Olympian / Potterless comes to South Asia, perhaps? I would love to, but it is hard to know statistics-wise because Asia does not like to give me the helpful information about how many downloads everything gets.
Yeah, so it's hard to know if you're going to show up and it'll be like one person.
Right.
Or no people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was very cool that Dublin had good downloads. You guys made it into the top 10 of cities, so it was very easy. And there were a lot of listeners who suggested venues, so that made it very easy. The Sugar Club, where we're performing, got multiple recommendations from multiple people, and it's been great thus far.
Very cool
so
place,
good stuff all around. Now, here's going to be the final question. This one also comes from Senan, and this is a fantastic one. Who would win in an episode of Meddling Adults between Percy and Harry? Which I think is great. Yeah, Percy is the obvious answer.
I don't know if either of them would win.
I feel like Percy would do better solely because, and I know that this is not necessarily Harry's fault because Petunia grew him up knowing or telling him that questions are not to be asked. The people who do best in Answers of Meddling Adults are usually the folks who ask a bunch of questions because then it sparks that light bulb moment, especially for Encyclopedia Brown mysteries, which are always tricky little shenanigans for the answer. So if you ask more leading questions. So I think Percy would do better just because he would ask some more questions and then he'd be like, oh, I got it. It's because, the person's colorblind. So how could they know the difference between red and green on the traffic light or whatever? Like that's the level of minutia when that comes through an Encyclopedia Brown mystery. So I feel like he would be more perceptive about it. Yeah. So I think that's the answer. And that's where we'll end the show because we are at time. So first off, give Kelly a round of applause for being a great guest for the second act. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming out to the show. This would not have been possible without you, so thank you so much for coming through. Also, give it up for everyone at the Sugar Club. Everyone in the whole team has been amazing, from hospitality to sound to running the show and the emails. Like, one of, if not the smoothest processes I've ever gone through for putting together a live show. And then also give it up for Lotta and Vero for running the merch table. They did a wonderful job. We overheard them bullying, or as they would say, kindly motivating you to get some merch. So thank you so much for that. Gently encouraging. Thank you very much. But I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for coming out. This has been fantastic. Not able to stick around for any sort of meet or greet or anything like that because we got to get going and all, but I really, really appreciate it. So until next time, when I come back to Dublin and, of course, the rest of Ireland, of course, I'll pursue you later. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you love the show, you're all caught up on the show, and you just can't get enough, you should check out our Patreon, where you can get access to loads of bonus content, bonus episodes, bloopers, director's commentary, monthly Q&A live streams. All sorts of good stuff lives at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. And if you want to rep the show, you can get some merch at thenewsolympian.com/merch. If you want to be part of a larger community, you can join the Patreon, get access to our Discord, but you can also check us out on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewsolympian. We even have a TikTok account that Sherry runs. It's at Newest Olympian, and lots of good stuff on social media. This show wouldn't be possible without our patrons, and I want to give a shout out to our Ultra God tier patrons: Lotta Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Heather McMillan, Casey Williams, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Wise Girl, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Falcon, Joey James, Christopher William Boucher, Caden Mack, Sam Reeby, Carly Allen, Riley Kiedis, Mary Kelly, Audra, Mackenzie, Mrs. O'Leary, Aaron Wood, Rodith Kalna, Milo Kim, Fred Cabras, Harlan Christ, CC Reeds 23, Sandkoff, Julia Kendall, Emil Oscar Thomason, Liz Cardigan, Michelle Spurgeon, Zachary Hamilton, Sarah Neal, Ricky, Francesca Pacheco, John Drilsma, Demigod Nurse, Rayla Matthews, Riley Draken, Luna Kadoon, Sky Mallory, Elizabeth Obermiller, and Aiden Parziani. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, tell a friend about the show. That really helps a ton. Reach out to someone directly and say, hey, you love Percy Jackson, or hey, you've been looking for an excuse to read Percy Jackson. There's this podcast. It's very good. The host is very humble. You could also talk about us on social media or leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast app you're using. All these things help, and I really appreciate all of you who have done that or will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we will be joined live in person in London with special guest Joel Rochester as we finish up chapter 18 and do a chunk of chapter 19 of Battle of the Labyrinth. But until then, I'll pursue you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So as I mentioned, I'm doing laundry as I record this mid-roll break. And what I have done for this ASMR Mike segment is I just walked over with my phone and did a little voice memo of the machine when it was earlier in the cycle, and it was a bit more soothing. Now things are getting a little more rough, but hopefully you enjoy. Thank you so much for listening.